today's subject I would love to talk about is dissociation. And dissociation comes together with association in a way. And so why does dissociation happen? And how does it happen? So one of the first things when we talk about dissociation, it's a natural reflex. It's a natural reflex of the body. It's there basically to help us to stay in movement. We dissociate when something in the natural movement gets stuck. So we get a shock. And it means that the natural flow of experience gets stuck. And when the natural flow of experience gets stuck, you know, there's like a stop of the whole machine. And I'll explain later what exactly this machine is. There's a kind of stop. And then, you know, we dissociate in a way back towards the source. But if it's stuck, and we are not able to release it, then this dissociation back to the source, we get stuck in the source as well. So we find ourselves in a dissociated state. And I know this is kind of complex to understand, so I'll pull forward a chart and to try to show it. Okay, you know, this is the flow of naturalness, the natural flow which there is. And basically, you know, when we talk about energy, energy has a source, but energy comes from in the basis, the deepest layer of ourselves, the source of everything is something, you know, which is called deadness, or the unknowable and the unperceivable. It's something, you know, which is beyond even our perception. Perception is an effect of this. So this energy, this movement from deadness, the unknowable, unperceivable, kind of, you know, first of all, is moving through what you could say our essence. And part of the essence is true nature. But on the movement, so the first thing what comes out of the unknowable, the unperceivable, is basically our ability to know, our ability to perceive, our consciousness or conscious awareness, the perception through emptiness. And basically it starts with the perception through emptiness. From the perception to emptiness, you know, it moves to consciousness, into awareness. And this is the whole kind of incarnation of perception that we're able to perceive. And this comes together with, you know, individuality, a sense of individuality. And the sense of it in the individuality is moving through the whole area of true nature, or our essence, or our soul, or whatever you want to call it. And of course, this true nature starts to express itself in time and space, because deadness, the unknowable and the unperceivable, is beyond time and space. It starts to express itself in time and space through our non-dual qualities. And then, you know, there is this interaction with form, which is in time and space, of the non-dual qualities. And then you see that the non-dual qualities, part of what's happening with the non-dual qualities is that they move into like love, or like peace. You know, they move into dualities, because when there is time and space, when there is form, form is in duality. So the non-dual qualities start to express them, start to move into dualities. if we can move freely through the experience, through the expression which is there, then again, this will move back by itself towards the source. It's like what you could say a circulation of light, where light starts to express itself through nature. It takes form as consciousness, awareness, or pure perception. And it moves through nature, and then it kind of moving through nature, it finds its form into time and space, into matter, into the material world. And matter is every form. So, every word basically has time and space. Every experience has time and space. It's moving through time and space. All of this is part of the physical world, of matter. So that means it's important to understand that, we experience through matter, in matter, when we are incarnated. And then, when there's this experience in matter and we don't get stuck, we can just move through the experience. The experience will resolve itself. And it will resolve itself, and then the light kind of, of the source will move back into the source, and a new cycle will happen. And, this sounds very simple, but it's multidimensional. And that means that this circle is moving at the same time on a lot of different levels, in which every aspect of this circle is alive and forms its own circle with the source. So that means true nature is completely alive. Deadness is completely alive. Form is completely alive. And let's try to go to the next. And that makes it a little bit complicated. So we have the source. And so from the source, there is a movement of incarnation or creation, because, the movement of the energy from the source, the deadness, the unknowable, the unperceivable, which is pre-light, but it changes in light in the moment that awareness consciousness is added to it. So then from the source, in this movement of incarnation, creation, because it's a creative moment, into form. And it's important to understand that form is also a source, very close to the same source, the unknowable, unperceivable, and has its own life in a way. So you have these two kind of areas of aliveness, which are intermingling. So it's this movement of incarnation creation, of course, first what is there is that it moves through nature, and in the touch with true nature, just before that there is consciousness, awareness, and emptiness, which are the first qualities of true nature. And then, in its expression, non-dual qualities are coming forward. And these non-dual qualities, they are structured according, if there is a free flow of talent at that moment, according to our talents. So, when you're expressing in a talent as a bookkeeper, you use different non-dual qualities as when you are expressing as a doctor, or expressing as an artist, or are expressing as an English word for that, a plumber. Although there is an overlap of qualities, of non-dual qualities, always. So then what is happening, where we expressing in, is in what we would say daily life reality. And daily life reality is not something which is formed by the source itself. Daily life reality already is connected with the realm of form, of things which are structured. So we bring through our talents and through the true nature, basically, we bring the light into structure, and it meets structure as well, the daily life reality. And it sounds complex, but it's very, very simple in a way. You know, you try to express something and you express it to another person. And this other person has his own reality, and there will be a response, an influence of the reality of this person and how you express and to your expression, which has an influence. So in meeting this reality, our beliefs are important, because our beliefs and the beliefs we meet in reality of other persons, but let's stay with our beliefs, they help to structure our talents, our qualities, our thoughts, our genius into reality. They give a structure to it. And what you see, this structure is already kind of something which is more stable. As this is much less stable. It's moving all the time. It can change color in no time. So in its form, this is very, very, very free. And the more deeply we move towards form, the more stable, if you look at from the form it's it, the more rigid in a way it becomes. So in its expression, we meet fields of karma, lessons. And the fields of karma are connected maybe with contractions we build up in our own life, and contractions which are maybe, you know, in the family, like family karma. And so part of this family karma and the structures we build up inside ourselves, also the collective structures, the collective karma, is personality structures. And it's important to understand that, you know, when we look at the personality, we don't have only one personality. There is a lot of different personas inside ourselves. You know, when we meet our father, is a different personality as when we are at our work. We have a sub-personality, which is the child. We have a sub-personality, which is the adult. We have a sub-personality, which is the professional. And even the professional can be kind of, you know, divided in different sub-personalities. It can be the teacher, the barman, the fixer. So there's different sub-personalities also there. And all these personalities, again, are alive. They are alive in us. It's not dead material. And they kind of, you know, are interacting with each other. So sometimes there is this connection between the fixer and the lover, for instance, or the child and the teacher. So they can work together. It's not either or, it's and. It's alive, active, changing color all the time. So part of the creative force which is moving through us, which we are in a way, which we are an expression of in a way, is our imagination. And the imagination kind of is working through all these layers. And this imagination, you know, of course, what we told before is we can imagine that things are different. We have a big imagination as human beings. And because of the imagination that things can be different, we can form sub-personalities which we call ego, which are in a discrepancy with what you could say the true nature, and with the subpersonalities. And this is especially happening when we meet trauma, shock and trauma, when there is a split taking place. So the area where the split can taking place is the area, which is connected with our sense of reality, our beliefs, of course, the lessons of life, the personality structures. And a split means, in a way, that there is a freeze frame. Something is frozen. Something cannot move anymore. So when it cannot move anymore, then by nature, it will move back towards the source, towards where there is movement, where there is life. So if there is trauma, then you have to split the dissociation and there will be a movement back towards source. And often this movement will move into the area of consciousness, emptiness, and sometimes even totally into the source, into deadness, unconsciousness, falling away. If there is a natural movement, there's this imprint of the light into form. And of course, form, again, is also making an imprint on life. It goes both directions in the same way, in the same time. So there's this imprint into light. And if it kind of, if the light is moving through form, then what is happening to form is that there is a kind of a release of form, a refinement of form. So it's like form is taking place and form is releasing and refining at the same time. It's a process of transformation or a process of excarnation. And what's important to understand is that this takes place at the same time as that this takes place. So the incarnation and excarnation are taking place at the same time, all the time, constantly. This movement between the source and form is a movement which is constantly there, downwards and upwards, in little and bigger circles. So, and again, from form, there is a reaction on the personalities we have. The personalities in form, in the meeting with the light, are changing, are developing, are refining. There can be a release of karma, of lessons. We understand something. So there is a change of attitude, which is connected with the beliefs. Our beliefs are giving attitude, in which there is a change of reality, in which there is an enrichment of the talents and a refinement of the whole expression of the talents. We go back to the more unconditional form of the non-dual qualities. Often, when there is this movement, at the same time, there is kind of, an expansion of awareness, consciousness, and perception, and a reaffirmation of the true nature inside ourselves. To move back to a new circle, and to move back to a new circle, what's happening is that we, in a way, are, again, for a moment, into the unknowable or unperceivable, or for a longer period, to create a new cycle. So what makes it a little bit complex is that we are not living in one cycle. There is many cycles which are taking place at the same time. But what can happen is when we move into a shock or into an old reaction on a shock, which we called, a trauma or a trauma tunnel, then it's like one cycle is taking over. So there is this kind of shrinkage of our consciousness, conscious awareness, or perception into one reality, where there is many realities possible at the same time. We move into one reality. And this is basically where suffering is starting. At the same time, when we move into one reality, we are dissociated. We're not fully alive. There is dissociation at the same time. And this dissociation can be totally into this reality. So we can dissociate not only into, an area of emptiness or into the witness, but we can also dissociate in a different way, dissociate from our true nature into a trauma tunnel. We are not associated anymore with the whole true nature, emptiness, consciousness, awareness. We're basically dissociated into the tunnel, associated with the tunnel, as it's also possible that we dissociate into emptiness or into deadness. So, what does it mean when we are dissociated? So basically, it means that somewhere there is a split. There is a split in the free flow of conscious awareness, in the free flow of light. There is a split. And this split is taking place when conscious awareness is touching experience, is touching form. And it's like a machine. So it's touching form. There is a reaction on form, from conscious awareness, to say it like this, that it kind of, frightens back, it splits off. And the moment it frightens back, it splits off, a process of dissociation is happening. It's like the system tries to build a new circle, but so often we are not able to follow the whole circle. Because if we were able to follow the whole circle, the new circle, we could try again. But this is where the mind has an influence. There is this kind of freezing going on. So we don't start a new circle, but we stay somewhere in between. In between the experience, we're kind of, back off. And in between the whole area of non-experience. So when we talk about trauma, and we talk about dissociation, so we can say, okay, there is trauma, in a certain moment there is a trauma. But basically, when we talked about trauma, we say, most of us are traumatized. And most of us are spending a lot of time in their daily life in trauma tunnels. So according to the same logic, you could say most of us are spending a lot of time dissociated, stuck. And normally, it's not so bad if we're stuck in a certain area, because Again, there is a lot of movement, a lot of life, a lot of cycles on different dimensions which are taking place at the same time. So if we are stuck in one area, that doesn't mean that we are stuck in another area. So that means that the other area can be of help, to say it like this, with the area where we are stuck. So it could be that every time when we meet, a nice girl, if you are a guy or a girl, doesn't matter so much, that you kind of dissociates partly because it brings forward insecurity, a fear, the insecurity, the fear which comes forward by the form itself. It's not that we choose this. This is what we meet in coming into form in this certain area. It's part of life. It's part of how we are built physically. So we kind of frighten away from this. We don't want it. So we kind of move into a state of dissociation, of split. The oneness is lost at that moment. The free flow of experience is lost. We reject, we averse. And so often when we averse the insecurity, we try to grasp something else. We try to grasp an image connected with our imagination and how it should be. So we have an attitude as if we are not insecure and afraid at all. This is where ego is born. So we act as if. But it's important to understand that in all of this, there is this split, this disconnect. And we are dissociated. We're not able to fully experience what's there in the moment anymore. There is not a free flow. It's frozen. It's strange. It's fake. It's not real. It doesn't feel real anymore. So the difficulty is, when we find ourselves a lot into fakeness, that fakeness, where it first feels fake, we pretend to be very sure, and it feels fake, it doesn't feel real. We know it. It's a pretense. But if we kind of invest a lot in this pretense and we grasp it very firmly, this becomes a reality. We start to believe that this is much more the reality as the insecurity, which we meet in a more natural form. In a natural circle. So this circle gets stuck. It gets stuck in a reality. Every time when we meet a girl, we come in a certain kind of attitude and an ego. And this is how it is. This is reality. This is what we are. This is how we are. We identify with this. So it's not a possibility of expression anymore. It becomes an absolute form. And an absolute form is a trauma tunnel. There is no freedom. So basically, when we look at the macho, who's not able to sense or to connect or whatever, it's kind of, it's a certain reaction which is not free anymore. It's very difficult to react in another way. This is the state we move into. We move into a trauma tunnel. And at the same time, there is a form of dissociation. So what I was explaining before, there is many other circles at the same time and many other realities also at the same time. So part of the work we did in last course and part of the work what we do right now is to take one reality which is much more free in its circulation to support a reality where we are stuck. And so how do we do this? So when we move to these realities and the movement into reality, it moves through nature. And true nature is expressing itself through certain qualities. So often when we are stuck, there is a conflict around a certain quality. This quality is not allowed to take form, in the physical. It gets corrupted. We lose ourselves in the duality. There is not a free play through dualities back into true nature. So we're stuck in form. We're stuck in a certain form, and the form itself is not developing, not evaluating, not refining, not growing. So we can use another quality, another non-dual quality, in which the circulation is free to support the whole process. So, as an example, it's daily life stuff what I try to kind of explain. So, as an example, for instance, we have a little blockage on innocence. So we're totally absorbed into feelings of guilt and blame. And of course, blame comes by itself from guilt. Because, we don't want to feel guilty. So the way not to feel guilty is to shed it, to throw it away, to throw it off yourself, because the feeling of guilt is unbearable. Because of the guilt, you lose your innocence. You see all the beliefs which are taking place there. If you go back to the chart a little bit, all the beliefs which are there, in which the beliefs form the reality that there's something wrong with us, we are guilty, we cannot stand it, so we throw the guilt on somebody else and we start to blame. It's not me, but it's you. And then a new reality is born, a new cycle. A cycle which communication is moving only through guilt and blame on this level. Who is to blame? And again, this is also collective. If we read the newspapers, if we listen to conversations, what is it about? Most of it is about who is to blame. Who is guilty? Who is to blame? In which we start to move in the belief that we can solve a situation which is a suffering, is a discomfort, if we can find the one who is to blame. If we can point at it, everything will change. And when you think about it, this is already quite dissociated from reality, isn't it? It's in a tunnel. It's crazy. It makes no difference if we say it's because of you. You know, if we blame the people for the global heating and we know exactly who to blame, will it change anything about global heating? Does it mean that we don't need to deal with whatever comes forward as a problem anymore? Or the same around the corona. Or whatever problem is coming forward. So again, there is this contraction on innocence and this circle which is going around. So say that we bring unconditional love into this whole circle. We use another quality. We bring unconditional love into the whole circle of innocence or the whole circle of guilt and blame. So what would happen? Or we bring peace into it. We bring softness into it. We bring genius into it. We bring purity into it. So what we see is that there is a possibility that there is a break of state. Something else will happen. Where it was totally locked into form, again, you see that the form starts to develop. The form starts to transform. It starts to release, it starts to open up. And maybe if there is enough love, we are able to feel our own innocence in the situation again. We can reconnect with the non-dual quality which is behind the conflict. So in this, when we look into it, you know, this is how we learn. And we learn part by expressing and giving ourselves form, but at the same time, and that's the movement which is there at the same time as well, we learn through our impressions, through what we sense, what we feel, what we are aware of. And again, you know, yesterday we talked about hearing. And Georgie brought forward, if we listen to something, you know, it's not that we get the sounds. Basically, when you look how the nerve system is working, it feels sounds. The eyes are feeling light. The nose is feeling smells. And what do I mean with feeling? So, you know, you have this little hair into the inner ear, and there is a movement of the water in the inner ear according to a certain sound, a vibration, and the hair starts to vibrate. And the nerve system feels the vibration of the hair. It notices that. And this is translated in the brain by a sound, by a tone. And we're able to hear intense, I mean complex sounds. It's a miracle. And we can make sense of it. You know, you can make sense of me talking, which is a complex sound. Quite complex. There's a lot of different tones in it at the same time. So, and all these hairs start to move, and we feel the vibration, and the vibration is built into hearing, into understanding. The same is happening in the eye, in the nose, in the mouth. it's we feel. So that's important to understand, that everything is moving through our senses, and it says it already in the word sense. We sense. We sense sound, we sense light, we sense energies, we sense touch. And the senses, again, are connected directly with awareness, consciousness, and emptiness. So there is the whole flow of information from form, again, through the senses, back to the source. As there is a flow of information from the source back into form. Also through the senses, also through consciousness, also through awareness. And this is taking place at the same time. So the more we are able, and now it becomes very simple, to let this flow go in its own natural way. The more there is a free flow in all directions. The more we feel alive, the more we feel connected, the less we feel dissociated, the less split is there, the more we are one with the whole natural movement of life, because we're talking about the natural movement of life. So, and now it becomes very simple, because, the most wise men I met kind of talking about this. We met in Manchester, Russell. He was so simple in this, but such a deep understanding about, life. He says, basically, he said, don't grasp and don't averse. Just become aware where you grasp and averse and try to unlearn this. We are not here to learn so much, we are here to unlearn. And what he meant is, let go of a lot of structures of grasping and aversing. And of course, this is where it starts. The mind, so important in structuring reality. But then, when we look at the mind can work in two different ways. The mind can follow the experience, or the mind can dictate the experience. And this is exactly when you look to the trauma, and there is a movement back. And when there is this movement back upwards, or there is a split back, we dissociate in a way. So the mind starts, because it's not a circle which is round, in which we follow the experience, and the experience is following us. But there is this loop back, this back loop, by shock, by trauma, in which the mind takes over at that moment to control. The mind is dictating experience at that moment. We are not anymore in a receptive, active state, but we fall back into an active state in which the receptive part of ourselves gets more and more lost. So we dissociate, especially from the receptive part. So we become more and more active in trying to save today. So we grasp reality as how we want it. and we averse what we don't want. And again, this is another way to say the same. We kind of create a virtual life like this. So part of what Russell brought forward is, try not to grasp. When there's an experience, touch the experience, be with it, move with it, touch it with your consciousness, touch it with your awareness, but don't grasp it. Don't averse it, because aversing is also a kind of grasping. And again, it is slowly surrender. That's another way of saying it. Surrender to whatever experience life is bringing. If you dissociate or you get in a shock, it's not a problem. It's not a problem if we allow ourselves to go all the way, because it brings us back to the source. It's where the mind interferes, where we hold on, where we grasp and averse, where we kind of are stuck in a state of dissociation, which is very unpleasant. Because we dissociate from different parts of ourselves. So we are not whole anymore. And if the dissociation is into emptiness, or the dissociation is deep into the body, which is possible as well. It's not only when we dissociate that we leave the body. We leave a certain area of the body. We leave a part of the body. And the part of the body can be also, consciousness, awareness. We can lose ourselves if we dissociate totally into form as well, as that we move into formlessness. So the art is to go all the way. If you dissociate in the body, go all the way. Allow yourself to go all the way. Because it brings you into the depth of form, and from the depth of form, a movement of transformation will start by itself. That means if we are stuck in a certain experience, allow yourself to experience it. And we work a lot with this: experience the unbearable, bear the unbearable, be with it. Try to be at ease with your insecurity, try to be at ease with the fear which is there, with the anger which is there, with the jealousy which is there. Try to be at ease with it. It's just a form, it's just a feeling, it's just a reflection of light in form, which if we are at ease with it, it will kind of move through, again, the different levels of form back into the source as a refined form. It will come home. If we are dissociating more in areas of pure perception, into emptiness, into the witness, that we're outside of the body looking at ourselves, and we caught. So again, relax in it. Try not to hold on to it. Try not to grasp or to averse. Because we hold ourselves often like this, look at something we don't really want to look at, and not kind of integrate again, not associate again, not connect again. So what would happen if we let go? A new circle will start, a new circle of incarnation, of creation. And sometimes, we need to move back a little bit more into thatness. Just totally let go. And again, that doesn't mean that we are into the unknowable and perceivable forever. This will be a moment. And it's important to understand that, every time when we change our story, every time when we move from one situation to another situation, every time when there is a change in subpersonalities, when we move from our parents' house towards our work, there is this moment of deadness. There's this moment of this unperceivable, unknowable. There's a little blip, a little blackout, because a new form is born. And the new form can only be born if we release the old form through all the layers. So every time when we move out of the door of our parents' house, we release a certain form. And this form transforms. The next time when we move in it, it looks like exactly the same, but it will be slightly different, unless there is things in the form which are too caught, traumatized, not able to move anymore, where we split off, which are frozen in time and space. And we know this because, as children, we grow up. A child of 3 years old is reacting different as a child of 12 years old. It's a constant process of refinement, of growth, of development, of transformation from one situation to another situation. And we leave this whole sub-person, this whole lesson, this whole alive thing, which it is to be a child. We leave it behind when we move out of the door and we move towards our work. We have the blip and a whole new form starts to circulate. Doesn't mean that the old form is not there, it's alive in us. But it's another dimension. It's another layer. So we move from layer to layer. So what if we are stuck in the child and we take the child with us towards our work? And this happens sometimes. So the part of the personality which is professional is sometimes overshadowed by the part which is the child. So what's happening there? It's again a natural process of healing if we can just allow it. Because the professional probably is able to help the child. But if we resist the child as the professional, we create more conflict. We get more stuck. So again, the answer is so simple, if you understand the different circles of life which are taking place all the time, the answer is so simple. It can take care of itself. Our personality, our sub-personalities, they really can take care of ourselves, because by their true nature, they're looking for healing, self-regulation. We can trust them if we allow them to develop in their natural cause, to support each other in their natural cause. It's where our mind starts to interfere from the area of rejection, negation, where we get stuck exactly in what we reject. It cannot develop, it cannot refine itself. It cannot transform. If we reject fear, fear cannot take its natural course in which it will transform into freedom. If we reject rage and anger, anger cannot take its natural course in which it will transform into forgiveness. So we are stuck in anger. We're stuck in fear. We're stuck in insecurity. And of course, when we're stuck in insecurity and we don't want it, what we do is that we get so impure by pretending. So basically, all of these are states of dissociation. Dissociation from our true nature, from the natural movement between, the unknowable, unperceivable, depthness and form, in which, when we kind of think about it, it's a little bit a miracle we hardly know. And all life is asking from us is to trust the miracle. Trust the miracle. Whatever will happen, will happen. It's not in our control anyhow.